Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Scenic Route with me, Victoria Stewart, where we talk about the potential road less traveled, where we get off maybe unexpectedly or after some consideration, the trajectory we thought we were on for what was the right way to live our life. And today I'm very excited to have Abi Majekodunmi. I know I said that terribly. I was trying really hard. a, a
You did
fellow,
well.
a fellow like coach for women around money. And so I'm like really excited to talk about your journey, Abi, and kind of like our overlaps and how you got here. Because I feel like it's interesting how we each find our way to this, like, let's have a better relationship to our money. Let's have that freedom. So, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, and thanks for having me here. Abi Majekodunmi. So you did well there. And I am a mom of two boys, and just boys, I like to say, married to my bestie. We live in Virginia, and I was working in corporate, good job, I would say, making six figures, doing like what I was supposed to be doing, but I was burnt out. Everything looked great on the outside, and on the inside, it didn't feel that way. And now I help women who are in a similar situation get unstuck, because that's the feeling that you feel like you're stuck, right? But it's usually that financial piece that is missing, and how to make sure it's safe so that they can make this next step. And I feel like in life, we've kind of just heard, get a good job, climb up the corporate ladder, and this is what you're supposed to do. But there are many ways to do things. And then people also feel like before I can leave, I have to have like a side job or a side hustle.
Mhm.
And I was too tired to do that. So I'm not going to say to someone that's what you have to do. So there are other ways to take that next step and just do it safely, and then plan the exit out of the 9 to 5 so that you can start living life on your terms. And that's what I do now.
Amazing. So, what was kind of like what you thought was your like straight line path when you were growing up or when you were early in your career? Like, where did you think you were going?
That's a good question, because I'm Nigerian, I'm British, and then I'm American now. So I have this experience, which I'll say a lot of immigrants probably have, where you grow up hearing that there's certain careers and that's the one that's successful, right? Become a doctor, become a lawyer, become an accountant. What is marketing? They're like, yeah, what is marketing? So
Magic.
it was,
Voodoo.
yes, I mean, right? So it was that path of, this is what you're supposed to do.
Hmm.
And so the perfect path was, you study hard, get a good job, and then they squeeze in, get married, have kids too, right? And then from there, you keep climbing up the corporate ladder. So for me, that's kind of what I thought was the only way to do things. And I was, I wasn't like a rebel or anything, but I was like, I want to do marketing. It might not be a doctor, but I'm going to do this. They thought I'll be a lawyer because apparently I argued a lot, but I was like, no, I'm going to do marketing. So I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, which I was happy I did. But and I also studied business administration. And when I got married, I moved here and I got married. So my husband and I kind of lived on one income. And then I got a job, which is kind of stable. And from there, I had my first son, but he came 7 weeks early. And so I became a stay at home mom. And I like to say that because, I also had that experience of being a stay at home mom. And living the American dream is like, okay, want to grow a family. So we need more money. And then that's when I got to the corporate job, and I was doing well. So I thought I was on the right track. Everything was going well. And that's kind of the path that I thought, I'm going to stay here and keep doing well, then retire. But obviously, things changed.
Yes. And I think you may have touched on this a little already, but was there like an inciting incident? Was there like a thing that was like, wow, I really need to change that whole like starting of planning that exit? Like, was there a thing that happened or was it just a gradual sort of progression?
It was both. But,
Mhm.
they say like, the little things that happen and then it takes that one straw to break
Yeah.
everything. But so I would say for me, it's the start of where I really noticed the change was around COVID. So I've had my first son just before COVID happened. And then I went back into work. And the day I was supposed to, start again at work, they had the lockdown and it's like all the daycares to a shot. And, I'm doing all this work and I've got my two kids at home. But at the same time, I'm getting projects because I'm doing all the right things at work. And I think that's where I started to feel like, okay, something isn't quite right here because now sometimes I'm breastfeeding, I'm on, having meetings at the same time. The camera was off. But then, I'm pumping, I'm doing all these
Yeah.
things, and it was really, really hard. And I just thought, you know what? This is what people do. Other people do this. Why should I complain? And so I just kept going. And then I was getting good reviews. I was getting the promotions. COVID lockdown passed and things. And so it's like everything was just really going fast. And I was also on fast track. I was doing really well. But I remember there was one day I started to feel like, okay, something isn't right here because I woke up in the morning. I think we're a bit behind schedule. I'm rushing to take the kids off to school. And, I'm like, it feels like they're in a rat race too, right? I'm rushing to take them off to school. I drop them off to school. I have an 8:30 meeting. I'm rushing back home. And then I just keep driving past my house. So I wasn't running away from my family or anything like that, right? I was like, I didn't want to go back. So I did the professional thing. I went back, I had the meeting. But that day I was like, I can't keep going on like this. I
Yeah.
just can't. Like that was yeah, I knew I was done at that point.
That's so
I
interesting.
didn't quit my job, but I knew I was done,
Yeah, it
done at
was
that
like,
job.
okay,
Yeah,
something has
yeah,
to change here. I do think it's so
yes,
interesting how you just said it felt like the kids were in a rat race too. Like, right? Like, I don't know. I
yes.
have some friends who have kids and they are so busy. And I'm like, when do they have time just to like be a kid and have a good time? Like, why is everything so regimented
Yes.
and scheduled?
Yes, and I think part of it is you see what other people are doing, and I feel like there's this script, this is what you're supposed to do, and this is what is normal. And then we normalize a lot of things without asking, what do I want? So everyone's kid has like three, five activities. That's the normal way. So you also put your kids in so many activities, and did you want to do that? Did they want to do that? Like those questions. And for me, just seeing them like also hurry. And then by the time I finished with work, I was too burnt out to pour into them. And
Mm.
by the time I picked them up from school then, because they were in school then, they were also burnt out. So imagine a home where everyone is like that. It was hard.
And then you have to do homework
Yes.
with everybody
Homework.
dysregulated
And I
and
don't know why they
exhausted.
give homework to pre-K. Like,
Oh, yeah.
why do they need homework?
I
Yeah.
don't know.
So we had homework from the, yeah.
Their homework should be go home and play.
Yes. Yes. So it was a lot, like a lot of different things that you just feel like you have to do life, and then you have to show up, and then you're doing this 9 to 5, you have the 5 to 9, and it just doesn't end. And when do you rest? Because the weekends are also busy. You have the
Yeah.
birthday parties. Like they were more social than I was with the parties that they had. So by the time you do the parties, the activities, then you're going back, and then you have the Sunday blues. And I was just like, I'm doing this now, and they're getting ready to do their rat race right from the start. It's like, yes. And so I think for me, that moment was like, there's something really off with our rhythm that I really wanted to change.
Amazing. So I know we've talked before, and I did the exact opposite. Maybe not opposite of you, because I thought about leaving for a very long time. And I like took some actions that felt like I was putting myself into a good financial place before I left. But you actually were strategic about it. And I am curious, like how did that happen for you, that you were like, okay, let me sit down and figure this out so that I'm feeling good about this departure.
Yeah. So it's like I said, there were a lot of things that happened with, the whole process, and a lot of things helped. I didn't know a lot of things helped leading up to it, like leaving on one income between me and my husband, those things helped. So what really happened was that day that I mentioned that, I got back home and I said to my husband that day, I can't keep going on like this.
Hmm.
And the first thing I actually did was I asked myself what I wanted. And that was the very first time that I asked, like, what do I want? Not what society wants from me, not what other people expect of me, but what do I want? And it's not a selfish question to
No.
ask, right? It's good to ask yourself and just pause. And that was the first time I asked myself that question. I wasn't really clear about what I wanted, but I had a picture of it, which was I didn't want the rush. I wanted more of the slow mornings. I didn't want to be at someone else's control or beck and call. Like I had to be here. Like if my kid was sick, I wanted to be home with them and not think I had to be at some meeting. So the first thing I really started with was what do I want? And I knew I wanted out of the hamster wheel. I wanted to come off and I wanted to be more present as a mother, as a wife, and for myself. So that's the first thing. And then because of, I am a geek when it comes to money and planning and things like that. So that's where the financial piece came in, where, okay, I want to do all these things. That's all well and good. But how can I do it in a safe way? Having an emergency fund is one thing. You should always have that. And even with the market right now, I always say to people, have that. Like that is one thing that you should just have regardless, right?
Hmm.
So I wanted to make sure I had something beyond the emergency fund so that I had my runway.
Yep.
And so I started looking at what do our expenses look like? What are we spending on? And then I had an idea of what those things are, but you also start to see how inflated it is. There are things that we weren't even using any longer that I'd
Ah.
probably forgotten about, that you can cut this out or even rotate subscriptions. Like that's the thing you can do.
Hmm.
So I was looking at that and what our skinny budget was, what our like bare necessities were. So being able to do that, I was able to plan and say, I want to create a runway separate from our emergency fund and have that so that when I left, I didn't feel like I had to come back. And also, what do we need to survive on without, my income?
Hmm.
And having that idea of what you need helps you understand what you spend on a monthly basis. Sometimes people don't even need to replace 100% of their incomes.
Right.
That was, I was like, wow, okay. So that was really clear for me. And then from there, I was able to then move to action of what I needed to save, what I needed to do, and exit the 9 to 5. What was crazy in the whole process is I thought it was going to take me 12 months. It actually
Hmm.
took 5 months. So I don't know if I was so excited to leave or it was more like, okay, but it's funny how quickly when you know what you want, you start to work towards it. And that's what happened for me. And then I knew the date I was going to leave, and it changes everything. I can't explain how I went into meetings that used to frustrate me before, and you have to show up and, smiley face and everything, and you're burning. But it was a different feeling now because I
Right.
had an end date. I had my takeoff date. I was like, okay. And I was just showing up. And then I got even a better review that I had gotten because now it was a different person showing up. This person knew, like, I know what I want now.
Yeah.
So it was different.
Yeah, that feels like the key piece, right? It's not even just like, okay, I'm leaving, here's my end date. Okay, I've saved this much money. It if you don't take the time to actually get clear with yourself and your partner or whoever else is in your life on what you're aiming yourself towards, like, what is it that I do want this life to look like, you can kind of take the stress with you, right? Because you haven't really changed the fundamental piece.
Exactly. 100%. Because you have to get aligned with
Mhm.
what you want, what you really want to do. And I think that lights a different fire inside of you. And when you start seeing those things, it really becomes clear, like you hold that thing more sacred, like this is what I want. And then when you step into it, it's a game changer. It's really different. And I love that feeling of just knowing that I was able to do that, but it takes like deliberate planning and action. So it can be done, but for a lot of the time, it's like you just feel stuck and you don't really want to face it or look at it. It's like, I don't want to see like what my money looks like, right? But once you know, you can take control of it and it's a different feeling.
Yeah, I've noticed that, like, once you get past whether it's help with a coach or with a friend or whomever and actually look at your numbers, like, once you have that clarity, it there's like a door that opens of, like, to me
Hmm.
it's like there's a sparkle in people's eyes. There's like this creativity that gets opened up because it's not like you're hiding behind something. You're now like, oh, I'm
Yes.
out in the open. The possibilities are endless.
Yes, the possibilities is like just knowing like what is possible. And that's the thing, you don't even necessarily have to quit, right? But
Right.
when you know what is possible, or when you then have agency and know like, okay, this is what I can do, then you really take back control of a lot of things where, some people, and I mentioned the layoffs earlier, because, some people panicked about that.
Hmm.
But if you know what you want right now, and then even those things happening, it helps you understand, like, okay, regardless of what happens, this is what I want. I'm matching to my own beat. I'm on my own race,
Hmm.
right? I
Yeah.
hate to even use the word race, but I'm on my own path.
Yeah.
So it's really different. And like you said, having someone who's also walking beside you, more like an accountability partner, or someone who can cheer you on, someone that also makes a big difference in just making sure you get to that stage.
Yeah. Especially if it's been something you've been avoiding for so long, right? Like, then, or if it feels really scary, because I can't remember where I heard this, but it was like the coach, if you work with a coach, right? The coach holds your vision kind of like more strongly than you do. Like, they believe in what you're trying to do, so that when you don't, they're like, no, no, this is happening. This is happening. You're doing the work, right? Like, sometimes we need, like you said earlier, like that cheerleader or the person who's kind of
Yes.
like, here, let me hold your hand for a little while because it's
Yes.
feeling too hard right now.
Exactly. And sometimes I don't even like to say like I'm a coach or something,
Hmm.
but I'm a mom, right?
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
I'm your cheerleader, right? I'm your friend who can say, what I love about the friends and circles that I have is they call me out sometimes like, okay,
Hmm.
you could do this, you can push here,
Yeah.
and when I am too hard on myself, they can also say, like, give yourself some grace here.
Yeah.
And so those are the things, like even in having those conversations, someone could feel so bad. Money shapes us in so many different
So
ways.
many
And
ways.
a lot of the time we come in with some belief, something has happened in our life that shapes it. And so it's like, don't beat yourself up for things like that. What can you do now? What steps can you make to make a difference? And then sometimes you really like that coffee, right? Give yourself the coffee. Let's plan around every other thing.
Right.
So there's some things that are non-negotiable. Like I had my things. I was like, okay, I love eating out, not all the time, but sometimes. So I had my own. So I understand we're all human. And those kind of things are also the things we work towards.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so cool. So you created your runway in 5 months. You left. How did you go from that, being home with the kids, doing the homeschooling, and now starting to build this offer this business? Like, how did that journey happen?
So it's interesting. My mind works all the time, but I've learned to like just try to slow it down. And I remember having a conversation when I was leaving work. This was after I'd said I was leaving, and my friend was asking me then. She's like, "Oh, so what next?" And I was like, "Well, I'm going to relax, and I'm thinking of something. I really like working with personal finance, and she's like, Abby, just take a pause, relax, like take some time." I knew I wanted to do that. The first, couple like 9 months from work at least, I knew I wanted to just rest. So I took that intentional time to just, unwind. And I was tired. I slept sometimes and I really slept. I was tired. I didn't know how burnt out I was. So I took time for myself. And, even when I was leaving, I knew I wanted to homeschool my kids, and that was
Hmm.
going to start happening around the fall. So I wanted to make space for that, which was a journey on its own, and it's exciting. And so I wanted to make sure I was settled into that. And so I didn't start my business till the beginning of 2026, knowing I had an idea of what I wanted to do. And it especially came out of those conversations I was having, when I was leaving work, and also a lot of women I met. And they just sounded like they were stuck. And they just couldn't see, like you said, sometimes you don't see the possibilities.
Yeah.
And it's like, while they were excited, I could also hear this is what I'm doing. You're so lucky. And I really have this passion of there's something you can do. We always have options. And so that is how that bridge then happened from, I took my pause and then I homeschooled, then I started my business.
Beautiful. So, if there was something you could share maybe with yourself, I don't know, 10 years ago before the burnout happened, or maybe for us, I don't know, for you, it happened many times for me where I burn myself out, kind of have a break, burn myself out, have a break. But if is there something you would want to share, whether it's somebody who's listening, who's like earlier in their path, that you wish you had known then?
So many things. So many things. I think, yeah, I always go back to society and just thinking about things. When we're born, it's like this whole and I try to notice when I do it now as
Yeah.
a parent is you have these things like, you see your son is building and he's so good at building. You're like, oh, maybe he's going to be a scientist. And so this unconscious things that get put on us, or when we see life in a certain way, and everyone takes a path. So you think that is the path that I also need to take too, or this is what people have
Hmm.
said that I'm going to do. So many times, I want to go back and just say to myself, like, what do you want, Abby? Like, I remember there was a time I really wanted to be an interior decorator, and I'm like, this is what I want to do. And my mom was like, you're not going to England. And I'm not doing this right now. Do business administration. And I was happy. Like she was like, it's a safe thing, right? I was happy
Yeah.
to do that. But, it's just a lot of times like I wish I could go back and just say, what do you want to do? What do you want for your life? And
Hmm.
starting with that question is a very good place to start. And, with the money habits, we made some mistakes, we learned some things as everyone would. But it's also like lifestyles here can just be really inflated. Like you feel like you want to buy this, you want to do that. And all those things, like, did you really need this at this point in time?
Hmm.
And the sooner you can start either saving and investing, like those things compound so quickly and work for us. The things that were just leaving on the table, the benefits that come even at work that could help, what are you taking advantage of? It took me a long time to even see some of those things. And also, just going back, sometimes I said, like, I planned while I was at work to leave. Sometimes you feel guilty about I'm leaving, but you're not being disloyal. You're planning for your life. So that's also okay. But just going back to say, what do you want? And giving myself more agency, I would really go back 10 years and say, but at the same time, I know like everything happens for a reason
Yes,
sometimes, and there's always something to learn from it. So I don't beat myself up for things like that. I'm grateful for the life I have. So that's how I look at things.
that's beautiful. And I think that is such an important question for all of us to remember to ask, and maybe even for the younger people that we know, because I know that I totally lost it. Like I had no idea what I wanted when I was planning on leaving. I just knew something really had to change. It took me a very long
Yes.
time to even be able to access, like, I had forgotten what I thought was fun because it was
Mm,
just because I was on autopilot. I was doing, 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 and then you can forget, right? Because you've like shoved it all to the side. I'm just going to do it because that's what everybody tells me I should do, or I think that's what everybody is telling me I should do.
exactly, exactly. And like right now, when you look at the path of things, it's like climb up the corporate ladder. That's what you're supposed to do. And so a lot of people struggle, like, I've done all this, I've done my dues, I've worked hard for this. Am I going to throw that all away? But
Right.
is it what you want in the first place? Or they're like, okay, and I have to retire in my 60s. Like, there are other ways to make an income or even still invest so you're good. Like, when you're older, I say when we're older, but yeah, you understand what I mean.
I do know what
So
you mean.
it's like, and so, and also even thinking like I know you said 10 years, but also thinking like sometimes the thought is you have to replace 100% of your income. It's
Mm-hmm.
not usually the case.
Yeah.
So even knowing like, what is your income gap?
Mm-hmm.
What do you need to replace? Like, and then just start living life on your terms. That's the best way. And I'll just add in that, like, there's this lovely, I don't know where it comes from. I used to think it was an African one, but there's a man and his donkey and he's got his wife and they're both on it. And then people are like, why are you on that? And then they both come off and people are like, they have a donkey. Nobody's using a donkey. Then he goes on and then people are like, you didn't let your wife go on it. So he comes off, his wife goes on it. So people always say something. So you might as well live life on your terms.
Yeah.
So that's
It's
how
a,
I live now.
there's always going to be somebody who's telling you you're doing it wrong, right? No matter what you're doing. I feel like,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
which is so funny.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so now that you're building your business, is there like, yes, personal finance, bringing in, being this, having this clarity if you're looking to leave, or maybe not. What is it that you're looking to build, help people, help women with? Like, you want to talk about that a little bit? Like your
Yes,
perspective and
yes.
your strategy?
Yeah. So what I'm trying to make space for is women understanding there's a third option.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually like, and I know there are different situations that happen. Like we said, we talked about our different stories, right? But there's this view that you kind of have to either quit your job and figure it out, or you just stay and burn out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not usually the case. There's always another way to do things, and trying to help women see that that is another way, especially working moms too, because there's this 9 to 5 structure. School finishes at 3, but then that's the middle of like work. You got to rush from work to school to like, it's just, it's a lot. So understanding like what do you want and helping, go through those questions to understand it, understanding there's another way. And I love to say that I started out when we were talking, like I was a stay-at-home mom. I've been the mom who worked in an office. I've been the work from home mom. I've been the mom on pause. And now I'm the mom with her own business, but I work on my own time. Like if I don't want to work, I take a break. If I feel like I show up, right? So I have my own time right now and my own flexibility, which for me is my freedom. And being a stay-at-home mom, the mom at the office, the work from home mom, in all those seasons, I was a mom who loved her kids. And so, what I try to point out is there's no one way or best way, is what works best for a family and what works best for that person. And so, I always say none is better than the other. It's what works best for you. And so, I respect all hats because I've been all of them. So, I just want people to know like, always start with what works for best for you and don't look at what other people are doing and because that's not the best way to live. And it's going to be hard. So I'm just, I know that homeschooling isn't for everyone. So I'm not saying that people do that. I know, owning your business is not for everyone, so it's just different paths. And so those are the questions that I have conversations around in trying to understand, in terms of what they want to do and plan for those kind of things. And they don't always, like I said, have to replace 100% of the income. It's like, what does life look like for you and what do you want?
That's amazing. Yeah, I feel like, and this has happened to me over and over in doing the business building, like growing up, going to college, getting a job. Like it just happens in a different way over and over as you keep, falling back on there's a right way to do it. And and like this, the whole point of this podcast, right? Is like, no, the only right way, the right way to do it is your way, the way that works for you, right? The rest of
Yes.
it you can use for data points, examples, like, oh, well, I really would never want to do that. Like, I want to make sure, like you said, slower mornings, right? That you want to have free mornings, you want to do whatever. But it's like, even myself, like, I had similar thoughts. I was like, I want to work for myself because I want flexibility in my schedule. I don't want to be starting at a specific time, this, that, and the other thing. And then it's so easy to fall back into, I must do all the things all at once, all the time. And you forget, hey, I set some boundaries for myself. This is how I want to live my life. And you're like, oh, I even
Yes.
forgot it for myself. And I'm like building this thing. I'm like, it's because people say when you start a business, it's got to be a grind. When you do this, it has to be like this. You need to do social media 50,000 times a day, right? Like, or whatever it is you
Listen.
say. But I'm
Yes.
exaggerating, obviously. But it's like keep coming back to, like you're saying, what is right for you. And that is
Exactly.
huge and so hard to
Exactly.
remember.
Yes. And Victoria, what you said, it takes a lot of unlearning
Hmm.
because we've done a lot of these things, and so I have to say to myself, like, this is what I built space for. I want the slow mornings. I want to be able to take my boys out when I want to or do things like that. So I have to remind myself and consciously make that space to say, okay, this is me resting. I don't want to do this right now. I want to do this right now. And that's okay. So I think, everyone experiences things. And we also have to make space for the growth that
Uh-huh.
comes with it because what looks like this is life in this season might look very different in the next season, and it's okay to move through those seasons. I truly believe there's a season for everything.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Because there's seasons in the year, there's seasons in our lives, almost even seasons in the day. And that's another great message to, like, put a little asterisk star next to, is that you might think you want something now, but don't try to hold yourself there because it can evolve, right? You try something, you're like, oh, never mind, I did not love that. Let me take the
Uh,
part that I loved and add it to something else.
Oh my, it's like talking about fashion. Like there was a time I loved skinny jeans. Like right now, I do not need skinny jeans in my lives, but there are things that happen and you're like, this is what fits right now. And it could look very different in another season. And you look at it or you try something because you think you're really gonna like it, and you're like, that didn't work for me. And so being aware of those different things, of what you're trying, and in this, sometimes you see other people and you're like, oh, they have it all figured out. But what we don't see is all the work that it took behind to get to that stage. So there's also going to be learning along the way, failing forward along the way. Okay, that didn't work. I didn't like how that looked, right? And then you move on and we just do that, right? So I allow myself to fail forward. I allow myself to make mistakes. I learn from it. I learn from my kids.
Yeah.
So it's that's how life is, and that's where growth is also.
Beautiful. So, is there anything that you wish I had asked you or that we had talked about?
I think we covered most things, and I just want to I say remind, but just encourage people to know that there's always an option. And having that money talk sometimes is hard. Like, okay, I don't want to look at it, but just being aware of where it is, it's something that you could always work on and plan for, and understanding what you want out of life, because we've kind of had this script and it's like learning, what do I want? So make a choice for yourself, like today, a simple thing like, what do I want to do? And then you don't always have to, like I say, you don't have to quit overnight, right? You can also decide and realize, okay, I want to do something different. And then you can plan towards that. So that is, have space for that conversation as well, and with yourself.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Abby. And where can people find you if they would like to learn more?
Sure. So I've got my website, which is freedomrunway.com, but I'm also on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, and those are the places they can find me. And I also have a free resource if people ever wanted to just have those questions, ask those questions on what they want to. I say it's a first step to understanding where they stand. So I also have that on my website too.
Beautiful. And we'll put all the links in the show notes for everybody. So it's not like anybody has to start Googling. They will be at the bottom, and I will embed links where I'm able to so that it's easy peasy. And thank you so much, Abby, for being here and sharing your wisdom. Thanks, everybody who's been here listening, who watched. And if you enjoyed this, like, follow me, follow Abby, follow the show, rate and subscribe. And thank you very much.
Thank you.